stand and sing Wonderful Grace of Jesus. Thank you. You may be seated. Now I'm turning it over to Jacob Jordan for the message.
Morning, everybody. Before we get started, I thought I'd share a little something with you about my week. I'd had a pretty hard day the day before. I don't remember, I think it was Thursday morning. I was on my way to work. As I mentioned, you guys are on skidder for a local logging company. We've been leaving at 1 o'clock in the morning. Go to work, not get home until like 2 in the afternoon. So I was on my way to work, and I've been seeing a lot of different animals. A lot of stuff I've never seen before, too. I come around the corner, and there was a doe on the road with a little baby. I mean, just little baby, smaller than Bambi, spotted. That was about the neatest thing I'd ever seen. I was like, thank you, God. That was a great start to my day. All right, we're going to start out with 2 Timothy chapter 3. We'll be reading verses 1 through 5. It says, "But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power, have nothing to do with such people." Now I know we've read this before, but with 4th of July, which formerly was known as Independence Day, most days we just call it 4th of July, like it's any other day. With that right around the corner, I want to look at this a little bit differently this morning. I was thinking back, I'm a big history buff, I like American history. I was thinking back to how that must have been when the Declaration of Independence was being signed and the country was in its first days. And you look back at the history of our country and how we got to where we are today. Starting back in 1620, a group of people decided they were going to leave the old world. They were going to start on a new journey. So they all get on a boat. We spent 66 days on that boat, on a mission to a place they've never seen before. They didn't know anything about it. Could have been any place. They could have got here and it could have been the worst place on the face of the earth. They had no idea. But they knew it was different. It was someplace new. Someplace where they could go and they could have freedom. The freedom that they couldn't find where they were before. They said, we don't have freedom of religion where we are. We don't have the freedom to worship God when we want to. We're being held down. So they packed everything up. They got on the boat. They came to this new place, this new country, this new land. They knew nothing about it. Complete suicide mission, when you think about it. So they get on that boat and they take the trip. And they get here and they start what would be the journey that would lead us to where we are today. And what a journey that was. That must have been pretty scary, I would think. I don't know if I'd have the guts to do it. Leave the place you've known all your life and go somewhere completely uncharted. So they did that. And it was a long, hard mission to get to that day in 1776, when they signed the Declaration of Independence. And they officially put the wheels in motion on a new country. And so that went on. They had the War of Independence, 1775 and 1783. What a battle it was, just to keep the freedom that they'd come all this way to have. The war, the battle they had in the old country followed them right to where they were. And it was quite a battle to keep that independence. the signing of the Constitution, 1787. That opened up a whole other thing. Great men, our great forefathers sat down, prayerfully, I might add, sat down under God and said, what can we write up and put in place to protect the freedoms that we have in this country? One nation under God, right? Indivisible. So they sat down and they do the Constitution. Now you come ahead, and we've got years and years of war that was fought. 1861 to 1865, Civil War to free the slaves. What a battle that was. Nation, brand new. I mean, really, when you think of it, not very old. Split right down the middle, fighting against each other over the issue of slavery. 1914 to 1918, World War I. Worldwide battle. War to end all wars. What a bloody war it was. Never happened again. No, never happened again. Never again will the world be at war. 1941, 1945, World War II. It happened again. What surprises me is the fact that there was a time in this country when we believed in something. When we believed in something greater than ourselves. When we believed in God, and we believed in the principles that we find in this book. And we believed in that to a point where we would lose our life for it. In a battle night, we would go into a place we've never seen before, fight side by side with men from our community, and lose our lives right there for something that we believe that strongly in. Where has it all gone? Where has it all gone? These wars we fought, Cold War, Vietnam, all this stuff, battling against the evil in the world, communism, all these powers, socialism, communism, Marxism, all this stuff that we battled against, just so that we can keep our nation free. Look where we are today. Teetering right on the edge of the cliff. Literally, we're teetering right on the edge of the cliff. Communism is right there. We could be there. Overnight, what happened? Where did this come from? And I think about the founding fathers. If they could see us today, what would they think? What would they think of what we've become? All the principles that they put in place come from this book. Everything that all those men lost their lives for. And we're willing to just sweep it all aside. It's sad. It's really sad. And just to go into some of it here, you look around at what's going on, things are crazy. Absolutely insane. And you think, how did we get here? Well, the thing is, it doesn't happen overnight. You think they could have come in the 50s and said, there's going to be a communist nation. Everybody would have said, whoa, hold the phone. You know? Now, everybody's cool with that. Little by little, they come in. They take away one freedom at a time. They do one thing at a time. And they get in there and they get in your head. And you don't even know what they're doing yet. It's like if you take a frog and throw him in a pot of boiling water, you don't think the frog's going to jump out. But if you put him in a cold pot of water, you turn the heat on low, a little hotter, he's just going to be in there chilling, floating around, having a bubble bath. The next thing he knows, he's fried right there. And that's how it goes. They come in little by little, and you don't even see it. And so many people don't see what's going on around us. We're just living life, and it's going a little further each day, and no one notices. Things that have gone on in the past year in this country is literally devastating. To see what's happened in such a short amount of time. In my lifetime, I remember back as a little kid, it seemed to me, I was a little kid, but it seemed to me like none of this was even started. And then here we are, like 10 years later, we're full force with this stuff. All this stuff's just brewing. Where did it all come from? We are past, let me say this, we are past the point of whether it is simply political issue, party to party. Past that point. It's no longer if you vote one way, one issue is more important to you. If you vote the other way, it's more important to you. It doesn't matter. It's not like that anymore. We're either voting to keep ourselves a nation under God, or we're voting to throw it all away. That's what has happened. The line is drawn in the sand, and it's no longer just a little bit of personal preference which way you vote. we have come to a point where we're literally fighting every day just to keep this a nation. And it's sad. Look at the agendas that are being pushed. These people, the whole Democrat Party has come in, and they're pushing communism, they're pushing all this stuff. You look at the definitions here. Communism, the very definition of communism is a political theory, this is right from Google, political theory derived from Karl Marx, founder of Marxism, advocating class war and leading to a society in which all property is publicly owned and each person works and is paid according to their abilities and needs. Socialism, a political economic theory of social organizations which advocates that the means of production and distribution and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole. Sounds a lot like welfare to me, doesn't it? Think about it. People sit there all day, they don't do nothing. We work, we pay them so that they can have the same rights that we do. That's not how it was supposed to be designed. It's supposed to be people who needed help, got help, not half the nation who works and the other half who just rides the bus. This is not how it was supposed to be. And all these things are pushing us further over the cliff. One thing at a time. And it's all sweeping in, and they're pushing it all the time. More programs, more free money. There's no such thing as free money. There's no such thing as free money. The money has to come from somewhere. And what happened to the nation where we had, putting the presidents right out of the picture, this nation was founded with a bigger leader. This nation was founded under God and God's principles. Now we're looking at just our presidents, which are a disaster, and we're looking to them to pull us out of the messes we're in. And that's not the answer. You can't do that. We see all these things going on around us. All this civil rights and everything coming through. Government control is becoming a big issue as we go on. Look at the coronavirus. Yes, the coronavirus was bad. And it wouldn't be an issue if they'd said, wear a mask and stay safe, everybody want everybody safe. There's some things there that don't add up. How come there's people who can go into a bar, groups and groups of people can go into a bar and hang out, and they were telling some of us we couldn't even have church? It doesn't even make any sense. It doesn't make a bit of sense. It's not like there's any reasoning behind that. What is the difference? There's no difference. We were lucky enough that we were able to continue to have church, but there was a lot of churches that weren't. A lot of churches that were told you have to close the doors because this COVID outbreak is too bad. Well, people were going into casinos and bars and hanging out all day long and they never said a word to them. This is where we're at. This is what we're seeing. And there was a time in this country when you were said that would never happen. They could never do that. Founding fathers knew it could happen. That's why they put everything in place that they did. They saw how fast it could change. They knew one generation could be the difference between the great nation of God and communism. They knew that. That's why they constantly warned about it. We need to learn from history. That's what history is there for. You're supposed to constantly be moving forward and learning from the experiences, not forgetting what happened and letting it repeat. I've been listening to a lot of the news on political talk radio and things on the day, going back and things like that. And some of the stuff you don't hear on the news that's going on is so bad. It's so bad. You've got little tiny kids in school. They get taught that boys can be girls and girls can be boys in first grade. What's going on? And it's worse than that even. Some of it I don't even want to tell you is so bad. And if you don't believe me, I'm not asking for anybody to take me at face value here. Go look it up. I encourage you to fact check it. You will be stunned with the stuff that you hear and you see and read about the stuff that's going on. And I'll tell you, it's scary. It's very scary. Because you look at it, one of the biggest movements in history, overthrowing the world, overthrowing the power, communism, Hitler, right? What was Hitler's main tool? He got in there, he got in the schools. He taught these children all these things, brainwashed these kids. Because the fact is, this older generation knows better. to talk. If they can get in there at a young age and teach these kids what they want them to think, then who's going to fight them? And that's exactly what they're doing. They're coming in the schools, teaching all these things. Some schools out of state have been having things. They'll bring the Black Panther organization. They brought them in from some of the schools out of state and had them talk to the kids. What's going on? What is going on? The little kids, brainwashing little kids, little innocent kids. And they're doing this all the time. Another thing is, this is a famous quote here. Find it. This is by, I'll probably slaughter this, Maximilien Robespierre. He was a French lawyer way back when. He made this quote on freedom. The secret to freedom lies in educating people, whereas the secret of tyranny is in keeping them ignorant. That's exactly what we're seeing. Exactly what we're seeing. You look around and these big, it's all money pool. Money talks, right? And the Democrats and all these big corporations are throwing money into media. They've got control of all of our media. And they feed in what they want us to hear, what they don't want us to hear, we don't hear. Unless you go outside those sources. And 85% of the people snap on the local news at night, snap on CNN, watch the news and take that at face value. And that's where the problem comes in. Because they feed us what they want us to hear and they don't tell us the truth. And that's exactly what happened back in World War II. The Germans came and took all the radios. Took every radio out of every house. They brought them back, they worked on them, they brought them back, and when they come back, you could only get German stations. That's all they could get. That was the only news they had. Aside from information that was being brought in, secretly. That's all they had. Turn on the radio and all you had was the German news as they wanted you to hear it. And by that way, they could keep everybody out of the loop. And if everybody's out of the loop and don't know what's going on, how are they going to do anything about it? And this is the same thing that's happening here. You can watch it right down the line. They do everything they can to get in there and shut off the information. Keep us ignorant to what's going on. And then do what they want to do. They can tell us what they want, whatever. And everybody will follow along. Well, wise man, much wiser than me, once said, Mr. Honest Abraham Lincoln, you can fool all the people some of the time, some of the people all the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. And I hope that's true. I really hope it is. I hope that there's still a good portion of us out there that aren't fooled by what's going on, by what you see around you, all this crazy stuff. Hope that there's still a remnant of true God-fearing Americans out there who are going to stand against the things that are coming. Let's go over to Luke chapter 23. We'll be reading verses 13 through 25. It says, Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, and said to them, you brought me this man as one who is inciting the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence, and found no basis for your charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to us. As you can see, he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore, I will punish him and then release him. But the crowd shouted, away with this man, release Barabbas. Barabbas had been thrown into prison for an insurrection in the city for murder. Wanting to release Jesus, Pilate appealed to them again, but they kept shouting, crucify him, crucify him. For the third time he spoke to them, why? What crime has this man committed? I have found in him no grounds for the death penalty. Therefore, I will have him punished and then release him. But the loud shouts, they insistently demanded that he be crucified, and their shouts prevailed. So So Pilate decided to grant their demand. He released the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, the one they asked for, and surrendered Jesus to their will. This reminds me a lot of something that just happened, something that's all over the news, still is all over the news, something very controversial. I did a little background history research on this George Floyd thing that we're seeing all over the news every day. And they made it out to be this big deal, and they told us that racism is a big issue, and it's running rampant, and all these things. I did a little bit of research. As you know, the cop that arrested George Floyd was arrested and put in prison, I think for 20-some years or something. And a little bit of research on George Floyd. At the time of George Floyd's arrest, he was carrying in his body a large amount of fentanyl. It's a very bad drug. You recognize that. Just a little bit off his record. This is just what I could find kicking around a little bit. At the time of his arrest, he was busted for trying to purchase things at a store with counterfeit money. He was busted once for cocaine possession, 2 times for theft, once for failure to identify to a cop, another 4 times for cocaine possession, aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon. Okay, we've reached that point. We take a police officer who's done his job and we throw him in jail for however long, 20+ years, because he did his job. He cuffed a man who's a criminal, a lifelong criminal, and he got thrown in jail for it. What is this coming to? You complain about the crisis of the nation. We're defunding the police. We're throwing police in jail. We got the police so scared at this point they don't want to do their job. And I don't blame them. Who would want to do that? Who would want to go out and do your job every day so that you could be the one on the wrong side of the bars? Who would do that? Think about it. This is the point we've come to. Criminals mean more to us than our good men and women who are just trying to do their job and keep us safe. This is the point we've arrived at. What has happened? What is going on in our minds? It's such a deal. And they talk about racism. Racism. I'm sure there is racism to an extent. Do I think it's rampant in our country? No. I don't. I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's rampant in our country. And at this point, what they've done is they've turned the racism back onto us. Now, all of a sudden, if you're white, you're racist. You're supremacist. You're scum. Scum on the shoes of our feet, just because we're white. Well, what's that? That used to be called racism. I don't know what they call it now. But looking at somebody just because of the color of their skin and generalizing, that's racism. Isn't that what they're doing? I'm not racist. I'd help anybody. I don't care what color their skin is. But I am because I'm white. I don't think that flies. I don't think it does. But this is what they're doing. This is what they're doing all the way around. Why? Why is this happening? Because they've dethroned our leader. They've taken God off the top. They've put broken people in leadership positions. And they're running the country into the ground. You cannot run this country without God. You cannot do it. We were founded on God. That's the only reason we're still here. You don't think that communism could have swept across Europe and wiped the world out? It could have been done right there. It was not coincidence that we beat the Germans. It was not. We've had God on our side all the way through. We used him until we didn't need him anymore, and then we threw him to the side. That's what we did. And now this is the time we need to come back. I'm afraid we won't come back. But we need to. We need to come back. We need to come back to the way things used to be. We need to remember the values, look back in history, remember the way things were. Remember all the men who died. I would hate to think all those men died for nothing. That would kill me. All those families, broken, split apart, for nothing. Just because we're so selfish that this is the point we arrived at. It would be sad. You see the scandals right through. I mean, scandals. Look at the Clinton scandals that have gone on. Terrible, terrible stuff. All this stuff that goes on. And they're just, it's so evil. The heart of it is so evil when you look into it. The stuff that they're doing, nobody with a conscience could do that. It's really hard to believe the stuff that's going on in the nation right now. And look at Juneteenth. What happened when they declared Juneteenth a holiday? Did that make everybody happy? Nope. They went out, they looted, they shot people. People died. That's what happened. That's what we accomplished with Juneteenth. They're trying to take away the 4th of July and say Juneteenth is in the 4th of July. I don't think so. I don't think so. No. And they want to remember something on their Juneteenth. They want to remember all those men who died. Make sure at the end of the day they could be free like the rest of us. There's a lot of good men. A lot of good men that never made out. Make sure that they have the freedoms. That's what this country used to be about. It used to be a land of opportunity. You know, Statue of Liberty, give us your broken and battered. You know, all are welcome. Come here and if you want to work, we've got a life for you. That's what it used to be. It used to be anybody from anywhere could come in, no questions asked, and they could make a life for themselves here. This was a good place full of good people. You were safe here. And you had a life, a real life. Not government control, not anything that we see going on now. It was a real life. Good people, good communities. People who just love God and love their country. And that's something else. We got to remember something. We got to get our priorities straight. God and our country. Because at the end of the day, nothing's going to exist if we don't keep our eyes on God and protect our country. Where are we going to be? Let's go ahead and turn over finally to Genesis chapter 19. We're reading verses 1 through 29. It says, the 2 angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting at the gateway of the city. When he saw them, he got up to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. My lords, he said, please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night, and then go on your way early in the morning. No, they answered, we will spend the night in the square. But he insisted so strongly that they did go with him and entered his house. He prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. They called to Lot, where are the men who came with you tonight? Bring them out to us so we can have sex with them. Lot went outside and met them and shut the door behind him and said, no, my friends, do not do this wicked thing. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them, but don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof. Get out of our way, they replied. This fellow came here as a foreigner, and now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them. They kept bringing pressure on Lot and moved forward to break down the door. But the men inside reached out and pulled Lot back into the house and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the door of the house, young and old, with blindness, so that they could not find the door. The 2 men said to Lot, do you have anyone else here, sons-in-law, anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we are going to destroy this place. The outcry of the Lord against his people is so great that he has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who were pledged to marry his daughters. He said, hurry and get out of this place, because the Lord is about to destroy the city. But his sons-in-law thought he was joking. With the coming of the dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Hurry, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished." When he hesitated, the men grasped his hand in the hand of his wife and his 2 daughters and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. As soon as he had brought them out, one of them said, "Flee for your lives, don't look back, don't stop hanging around the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away." But Lot said to them, "No, my lords, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life. But I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me, and I'll die. Look, here's a town small enough to run to, near enough to run to, and it is small. Let me flee to it. It is very small, isn't it? Then my life will be spared." He said to them, "Very well, I will grant you this request too. I will not overthrow the town you speak of, but flee there quickly, because I cannot do anything until you reach it." That is why the town was called Zor. By the time Lot reached Zor, the sun had risen over the land, and the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, destroying all those living in the cities and also the vegetation of the land. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and returned to the place where he had stood before the Lord. He looked down towards Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace. So when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham, and he brought Lot out of the catastrophe and overthrew the cities where Lot had lived. This also sounds an awful lot like where we're at today, unfortunately. You cannot turn on the news or the radio or TV in general, or go out or go to the store without having big signs in your face, LGBTQ, this, that, plus the other thing. Everywhere you look, it's sick. It is absolutely sick and disgusting and outrageous. Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed for exactly that reason. The difference between Sodom and Gomorrah and us, Sodom and Gomorrah did not claim to be a godly nation. We're still standing up there talking about how we're one nation under God, a godly nation. No, we're not. No, we're not. We used to be. I don't know what we are now. I don't know anything now. I don't know the definition of racism. I don't know the definition of tolerance. I don't know anything. Even the simple things we were taught when we were kids now is, I don't know. Everything's politically incorrect. Everything's this, that, and the other thing. What's politically incorrect is standing up and calling yourself a godly nation to people's faces, lying into the faces of people who work to make this nation what it is, and telling them we're a godly nation and we're promoting progress and change. That's what's politically incorrect. They don't run the country. We run the country. You and me are the United States of America. It's our job to stand up every day, pray to God that we can be the best Americans we can be, and that we can contribute whatever we can to this great country. Because at the end of the day, it lies in our hands what happens. At the end of the day, I don't know about you, but I want to make sure those men didn't die for nothing. I want to make sure that the sacrifices that they made were for a reason. Because I respect that. I respect all the lives that were lost for this great nation. And I will do everything in my power to do what I can to make sure that we stay a great nation under God. Let's pray. Lord, we just come to you and thank you and praise you for all that you do. We just pray, God, that you would help us in these times, these tough times. Help us to be able to be soldiers for you, Lord. Help us to make sure that we are reading your word and trying to stay in line with your commandments. Help us to be the best people we can be, the best people for you, the best people for the country, Lord. We're praying today that you would give us safety and boldness and courage. I pray for revival, Lord. We need it. We need it so bad. Help us to remember the lives that were lost in making this nation. Help us to remember our forefathers and all their warnings, and the warnings in your word. Help us to take this serious, Lord, and live every day out working the best that we can to preserve this nation that you gave us, Lord. We wouldn't even have America if it wasn't for you. You gave us this nation, and we pray today that you would look on us with favor and help us get the revival to keep this nation, Lord. Help us to be a lighthouse for you. Help us to go back to being a nation that draws people to you instead of from you, Lord. Be with us each and every day. Protect us and our families as we go along. In your name we pray. Amen.
For the final hymn, let's stand and we'll be singing number 282. Surely goodness and mercy, and the chorus only. Sing it through twice.